Let us begin worship. Good morning. I am the Reverend Denise Colley. My pronouns are she and her. So many take for granted that musicians must practice and writers must write in order to improve, but artists must come out of the womb ready to paint with a brush in hand to see. We might never draw, but all of us have the power to notice, to look with new eyes and examine our world from a new perspective. And today we celebrate Earth Day by learning from humanist, artist, inventor, scholar, and genius Leonardo da Vinci. With lessons he lays out, we too can become people who learn how to see and translate that into being and make us great stewards of the earth.
Today's chalice lighting is based on words found in Leonardo da Vinci's sketchbooks written by the Reverend Denise. One has no right to love or hate anything if one has not acquired a thorough knowledge of its nature. Great love springs from great knowledge of the beloved object, and if you know it but little, you will be able to love it only a little or not at all. Continue your journey of knowing yourself and nature through the principles for the development of a complete mind. Study the science of art. Study the art of science. Develop your senses, especially learn how to see. Realize that everything connects to everything else. With that, you will spark your creativity, your spirit, and the light of love within you.
Please rise as you are willing and able, and let us sing our first hymn together. For the Beauty of the Earth. The words will be on the screen.
For the beauty of the earth. Child.
us all recite our covenant together. We unite to strengthen the bonds of kinship among all persons, to promote human dignity and increase reverence for life's creating, sustaining, and transforming power through worship, study, and service. Please be seated.
And now Jerome will lead us in our story. Kids, come up and sit with me in the front.
Hi, Jerome McDonald, he, him. Nice to see you too. Here's some more. We've got some travelers from the back, from the playground, wandering in. The story today is right on target for the theme of our service today. It's I Am Leonardo da Vinci by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. I am Leonardo da Vinci. As a young boy, I went hiking one day and found this amazing cave. I wanted to know what was inside. At first, I tried peeking in, but the cave was too dark. Right there, I felt two things: fear and desire, because I really wanted to know what was in there. Standing at the cave, I made my decision. If you want to learn something new, you have to follow your curiosity. It goes in. I found a whale fossil embedded in the wall. To see a mighty creature like that, I realized just how powerful nature can be. Back then, the richest kids with the proper background went to the best schools. By teaching myself, I was more open to new experiences and ideas. As a result, I didn't think like everyone else. I didn't even write like everyone else. I was left-handed, which back then was considered weird and odd. It may seem like a secret code, but it wasn't. It was just a way to keep the ink from smudging, a common practice back then, and he's writing from right to left so that he doesn't smudge, and he can barely read it. I wasn't the best student. I'd get easily distracted and bored unless I was doing something creative like art. When I was 14, my father showed some of my drawings to one of the best local artists, Andrea Del Verrocchio. I became his apprentice, which is a fancy way of saying he became my teacher. He taught me how to mix paints, draw and sculpt from models, and work with machinery on large projects. My first preserved art was a shield that I painted for someone. To make it realistic, I used more than paint. I took real body parts from lizards, snakes, bats, crickets, grasshoppers, even butterflies, and attached them piece by piece. You don't become an artist overnight. It takes practice and patience, drawing things over and over. Was I perfect? Not at all. I'd get distracted and sometimes felt so alone that I didn't finish many of my paintings. And when I did finish, I didn't think the work was very good. No matter what I was working on, I'd carefully examine each subject, studying every detail. I was especially interested in birds. My greatest strengths were curiosity and observation. Everything I saw, I'd put in my notebooks. I wanted to learn about everything. Each day was an opportunity to observe something new. I'd fill notebooks with drawings and ideas and art and anything else I found interesting. How did I find the answers? By observing every detail. The more questions you ask, the more answers you'll find. Over time, in addition to being an artist, I became an architect, an engineer, a musician, and a scientist, and a dentist, and did I mention I was a scientist? And of course, I was also an inventor. Every new piece of information led to a new breakthrough. Check out my designs, and you can see he invented a tank, and a submarine, and scuba gear, and a hang glider. That's pretty cool. And create the perfect smile. I worked on it for 16 years, carrying it with me until the day I died. For over a decade, I'd repaint it and try to fill it with every amazing new thing I'd learned about humans and nature. In my life, people called me a genius, a Renaissance man. They also said I was weird and odd. That's not a bad thing. Nothing amazing happens by thinking like everyone else. Look closely at nature. Trees, no two trees are the same, no two humans are either. That means no one will see the world as you do. That's not weird or odd, it's beautiful. Do what hasn't been done before. Build what hasn't been built before. When you do, no one will be able to look away. And that's the story for today. It is time to take your beautiful, curious selves and take all your individual souls and march off to the classroom right after we put out the light.
Breathe into these images as you look at the inside of a building or up into a sky, down into a lily pad or inside a flower. What color are they? What is the shape of the shore? What textures do you see? Are they smooth or rough? Even if your vision is low, you will be able to notice light or dark. How much of it takes up what space? Does it look like a series of furry textures, of dark lines? What colors are really there? Ask yourself not what it is, but what color, what texture, what design. What are you really seeing? If you could name no nouns, what do you see? It's so much what our left brain wants to do to say flower or water, but instead, what if you said gray, blue, speck, deep brown, light brown, purple? What if you noticed mostly light or mostly dark? Trying to see with new eyes is one of the best ways to let your right brain introduce you to a world you may have forgot to notice.
Today's reading is excerpts from Leonardo da Vinci Revisited. Was he an environmentalist ahead of his time? Written by Susan Broomhall and Andrea Grainer, professors of history at the University of Western Australia. Leonardo's notebooks are filled with illustrations of nature, both plants and animals, their interactions with humans, and in local ecosystems. Did his deep engagement with the natural world make him an environmentalist ahead of his time? Leonardo was a child of the Tuscan countryside, raised in the tiny village of Anciano, although he spent most of his adult life in the courts of dukes, kings, and princes. Some of his work for these patrons involved planning interventions into nature, most often waterways, but his sketches suggest his attention roamed further than the projects he was commissioned to undertake. He spent time with friends in a villa outside of Milan, observing the country nearby and sketching plans for a garden there, and ended his life on a little country estate that was then on the outskirts of Amboise, France. One of his first biographers, Giorgio Vasari, tells us that Leonardo delighted much in horses and also in all other animals, and often when passing by the places where they sold birds, he would take them out of their cages and, paying the price that was asked for them, would let them fly away into the air, restoring them to their lost liberty. Leonardo was also reportedly a vegetarian. This supposition comes from the explorer Andrea Corsali's description of the non-meat-eating Gujarati people, now in modern India, as, quote, like our Leonardo da Vinci, close quote. The many notebooks and loose sheets Leonardo filled with jottings and illustrations across his lifetime reveal his close observation of nature, from cats and crabs to flowers and copses of trees, and the spirit of inquiry from which he drew many lessons. His understanding of the habits of animals informed a series of fables and proverbs, bearing witness to various emotional traits he attributed to them: gratitude, rage, cruelty, and generosity among them. He suggested, for instance, that, quote, we see the most striking example of humility, unquote, in the lamb. But Leonardo was also struck by the violence of natural processes. Nature appears to have been, quote, rather a cruel stepmother. Why did nature not ordain that one animal should not live by the death of another? Close quote. Still, Leonardo does not seem to have been particularly concerned about the role of humans in enacting violence against other species. His own quest for knowledge and artistic creativity demanded it. Leonardo thought about nature as a resource to expand human knowledge and control the environment. His contemporaries clearly thought there was something different about Leonardo and his interest in nature. Does this make him a kind of pre-modern environmentalist?
As Leslie said, Leonardo grew up playing in streams along the countryside, and he filled his notebooks with bugs and birds and skeletons and plants. He grew up outside of Florence. He studied nature to fuel his inventions, his engineering, his design, his art. Of all the disciplines he studied, he was most rewarded for his art skills. But many forget that he designed machines for everything from measuring humidity. Here's a picture of Reverend Matt, my partner, filled with excitement, telling me about the humidity measuring invention in the Da Vinci Museum in Milan, standing below one of Leonardo's geometric studies. This is the museum there. In these halls, we observe how Da Vinci observed nature in all its forms, not just the pretty parts, the gory parts, the violent parts. He immersed himself in it. He practiced over and over and over. I love his studies of flight. He was bound and determined to figure out how to make flying machines. Looking at birds, watching the blackbirds flap, trying to still each frame of their wings. Beyond ideologies, through ideas, he wrote, from one value to another in its complexity, this is the path we take. Did you know he invented ornithopters? Machines with big wings. He was obsessed with flight. By studying the anatomy of birds, he hoped to build a machine that would allow humans to fly. And typically, these ornithopters were membrane-covered wings designed to flap up and down. And while that didn't work out, he never got that to fly, he did invent the parachute. And a self-supporting bridge that could be picked up by armies and run across the land to cross bodies of water. It was made out of several notched wooden poles and erected without the need for screws or any fasteners. Diving suits, because he took off and went and lived in Venice for a while, which was a big swamp, and he thought it would be handy since that place was always under attack too. Wouldn't it be cool if you could walk under the canals and then go under the boats that were trying to attack Venice and slit them from underneath, right? And then your enemies would sink, right? That would be really handy that way. Attila the Hun is who was first attacking Venice, but foreign powers continued to attack, and when Leonardo was there, it was the Ottoman Empire. And the polymath again offered his services as a military engineer. So Leonardo drew up plans for these diving suits. He thought he would make them out of leather, complete with glass goggles and cane tubing. He knew you'd have to breathe. And he figured you would float oxygen tanks up on top of the water and they'd just float along, right? And that would allow Venetian soldiers to walk on the seabed and sabotage the enemy ships below. And their breathing made possible the air tanks floating on the water's surface. It looks really scary, but it's pretty ingenious, I'm struck by the imagination of a childlike wonder that he brings to this, right? You'll walk along, you'll slit the bottom of the ship, And how he spent so much time along Tuscany's rivers and streams and besides these various bridges and connecting banks, and how it's possible to see the engineering projects controlling water, and how later he went on to produce machines to help with energy for mills, or building embankments to defend against floodwaters. And we find that Da Vinci drew them and studied them in his notebooks. Water was a fundamental element in the design of the universe. He built a water-raising device where it was possible to raise water above the level of a tank. He had 3 discrete tanks filled by separate plugs and tubes, and it worked by filling first the upper water tank and then removing that plug, and then that would connect to the second lower tank, which was filled with air, so that it could move it up in the third tank. He went on to design all kinds of stuff, like tools to help weave fabric, the machine to press pastels together to make crayons. I mean, who knows? Crayola could credit him for their start, right? And why? Right? Is it because that this one thing of his genius came from observing nature? Did he get so famous with his artwork because that was the only thing they couldn't replace with a machine? They couldn't make a factory to replace his art? Or is it because his decades of living in the Italian and later the French countryside prepared his eyes to see like no other? So as we celebrate Earth Day, Leonardo calls us to truly observe nature, to study it, to draw it, to diagram it, to walk, to see it with new eyes. The gardens here are stunning, and today they are like extra vibrant. Will you go enjoy the gardens and see a bird, or will you see a flying contraption? Will you look at how a bird takes off in flight, or just see a blackbird? What in nature will you observe? Where can you take your observations from nature? Can you see with new eyes? Or will you just see what you think you already know? Will you let your ego of your left brain take over and just naming things without really looking? Bird, column, black, line, feather. I look at this column that Da Vinci designed, and I know it came from nature. I can see how in 1500 Da Vinci was an early humanist. See, for us Unitarian Universalists, we can trace parts of our history through Da Vinci. Humanism, transcendentalism, and religious naturalism have these parts that are wonderful. And this was before humanism was identified as the propensity to work for justice, rallying against gender oppression. But it was speaking to a love of the arts and uplifting culture, even back then. For someone like Da Vinci, he was from the countryside, but his genius let him have entry into palaces, and the wealthiest families were his benefactors. Humanism could thrive in an environment like that, where people had a chance to become educated and could have enough resources to enjoy the arts. And later on, we'll see how transcendentalism gives way to appreciating beauty inspired by nature. But in the mid to late 1400s, early 1500s, humanism was where it was at, all right? That was like the cool thing to believe in back then. And so consider how humanist manifestos that weren't written for, another 500, 600, 700 years speak to nature and beauty and art and justice issues. And Leonardo wasn't just making war tools because he was a barbarian. No, it's because he wanted to get back to arts and nature. And humanism gave him a hope to carry him through all those in-between liminal spaces and places. It was a fuel to help him live in a space where many were hungry, where war was violent, where trauma was around him outside the castle gates, where people were facing terrible illness without the kind of sanitation we're used to, or medical care, vaccines. Leonardo was using his art and his inventions to show us how to live with ambiguity and to help people in his time. Now the humanist manifestos were hundreds of years away, but we can see how he was paving the path for transcendentalism, for that deep observation of nature. To say he was a Renaissance man was an understatement, right? I mean, he was the Renaissance man. But we can be too. The Renaissance human. He was looking at himself outside the sphere of justice, and he saw as he looked out, and he was trying to help his fellow citizens. And it was easy for those from a privileged place to assume, and I think many have assumed, that all that was needed was more education, more exposure to the wonders of humanism, and we would all join that theology and follow his ideals, perhaps, right? Or maybe the lesson here is to look deeply at nature the way he did and use that nature to fuel the care of life, challenging all of us to have more care about our own lives and the earth. In Looking versus Seeing by Brian Schumacher, he says, at the surface, the ability to see can seem like a self-evident and universal human experience, right? We point our eyes and we behold. What does it mean for a work of art to be well seen? Great artists are always teaching us the ability to see can be chimeral, complicated, trickier than we might assume. We all know it's easy to look at something or someone. Look around you right now. Look around you right now. Do you know what color eyes the person next to you has? In other words, to look is not necessarily the same as to see, nor is vision limited to the image that hits the retina of the eye. Vision is also desire and memory and the mysterious workings of our inner and complete personal reality. So today, in celebration of Earth Day, I invite you to take yourself on an artist's walk, a beauty walk, if you will. See and observe like an artist. Go on an artist date. Make a notebook of ideas. Take a series of photos with your phone. Ask yourself, what is your favorite texture? Learning to see with new eyes is a pathetic, or maybe not so pathetic, spiritual practice you can delight in anywhere. And if you notice more, you will appreciate the world around you with greater admiration. And that way of embracing line and texture and color and seeing more will help you access that place where the mystery of the world can collide with the dreaming of your imagination. And now let's learn something. The eye loves to see color. We have these light receptors, and they see millions and millions of color differences, and they detect so many variants. So those rooms we decorate with one taupe after beige after honey brown, the eye wants more. It gets really bored. You could even think of this as a brain game. Give it variation. Go out in nature. Don't just speed by everything. Stop, look. What does the space look like between the trees? Go up to the flower. What colors do you see? Go up to the garden. Get really close. No, closer. What does that stem look like? Is the flower emerging or dying? Take a picture of it if you're inclined. If you are able to go, look on the ground, get close. Are there grasses there? Are there bugs? Water drops? What do they feel like? Maybe you're driving. What is the color of the horizon? Does it change? Does the light in the trees change? Pick a flower, touch the stem. Is it smooth or fuzzy? Does it bend? Touch a petal. Go feel those magnolias, that soft silk between your fingers. Is it smooth like a kiss or wet like the lick from a dog? What color is it? Is that all? Are there more colors? Which ones? Pull back the petals. What's down there? Can you see the pollen? The bug living in your flower? If seeing is difficult for you, you can watch the light and shadow change for an hour some morning or evening. How does each stage feel? It'll be really hard to do. You might not last 5 minutes. Give it a go. These are beauty walks, and for some, they might be beauty visits, and you might amble or wheel to get them. Sometimes they include reading up on the history of the place you pass. Why is the land shaped like that? How was it formed? Who occupied this land? No, before them, and before them. Leonardo studied this way, and maybe your studies will yield inventions. Maybe they will create drawings. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter. What your beauty walks can do is change your heart. And I invite you to know nature in a whole new way. What you know better and see more of, you will appreciate. And the more you appreciate, the greater the value. And you will increase the volume on your sense of wonder and awe. Turn up the volume. And this will allow your heart to open, and you can learn to love nature more. And what you love, you will take care of. And what you take care of and love, you will fight for. And in the end, that's what Earth Day is all about.
Giving thanks is an important part of living in a covenantal, self-supporting community. Your financial gifts show gratitude for how our congregation supports us all. We are wildly grateful for you and this support. Without you, our mission to spread this faith of love could not evolve. Your gifts of gratitude and love will now be gratefully received.
Please stand as you are willing and able, and join me in the last hymn, our closing hymn, and the words will be on the screen.
death is your death. Ashes to ashes, dust into dust. I am your nurture, do not destroy me. Love and enjoy me, savor my fruit. My good is your good, my food is your food. Water and flower, riches and food. I am your lodging, do not abuse me. Tenderly use me, soothing my scars. My health is your health, my wealth is your wealth. Shining with promise, set among stars.
I invite you to go out in the world, take yourself on an artist's date, look with an eye for seeing, noticing, hearing, and perhaps delight with curious wonder, an objective naming of textures, lines, colors. Go in wild delight, my friends. Be like Leonardo. Go fall in love with nature.
And join me now as we celebrate being on this magnificent blue boat home.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on this mountain and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I dive a starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting in with my ship's companions, all we kindred human souls, drifting our way by the light of the heavens, in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before